episode of Better Humans at Work. I'm thrilled to be joined today by Nick Blasi. Thanks so much for joining us today, Nick.
Thanks for having me, Dr. B.
Absolutely. So, a little bit about Nick. He is co founder of Personos, which is focused on making psychology driven insights accessible for the workplace. His passion for improving the employee experience stems from his background in financial wholesaling within the 401k industry, where he helped organizations enhance their benefits and support their people. A Colorado native, he earned his degree from the University of Colorado Boulder and spends his free time reading U.S. history and traveling with his wife. I'm so excited to talk to you about AI and mental health today, Nick.
I know. I'm glad to be here. Should be a fun conversation.
So I don't think I've shared this with you, but I got my degree, my PhD from Colorado State University.
That's right. A little bit
And
of a rivalry here.
yeah, a little bit of a Rams versus the Buffs. But I loved living in Colorado. It was such like a healthy place to be.
Yeah.
Did you ever live up in Fort Collins, or have you been more the Boulder, Denver area?
No, so I've been Boulder and Denver the whole time, but my younger sister, she went up to CSU, so I went and visited as much as I possibly could. And then my mom actually went to CU Boulder too. So we're kind of a house divided, but not quite.
That's funny. That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, tell us a little bit about Personos, how you came up with the idea. I know you're a co-founder, how long y'all have been around. Then we can get into more of the AI and mental health stuff.
Excellent. Yeah. So my co-founder Christian and I, we've known each other for many years, and we started the company about a year and a half, 2 years ago. And a lot of that's been development, but the general idea of where this came from was we've done the DISC assessments, the Myers-Briggs, the Clifton Strengths, you name it, and quite frankly, we've loved them all. They're all really strong insights. The research has been fantastic, but we kept missing the so what. So we did this
Mm,
assessment, and that was kind of our big breakthrough. Is I brought my team out to Boston. We did a big DISC assessment seminar, and I was just on cloud nine. I'm like, here we go. We're going to change the game. Here go our sales numbers through the roof. Come back, and you could tell it just didn't stick. We literally saw these packets of paper get thrown into the bottom of a desk drawer, and like, how do we get this thing to carry on? How do we actually get this to change daily behaviors of people? Because we're leaving a fantastic science here on the deck. So that was our thought process. Christian actually has an interesting background as well. So he went to University of Denver. So we've got all of Colorado covered here. But he played on that lacrosse team that won the national championship. And we're obviously close. We're super fans, watching them every time. We're like, what did it? How did you bring the first national championship west of the Mississippi? And every Monday at practice, the first hour, they did this personality type science. So they brought in
mhm.
a professional psychologist and they talked, you're down 4 goals. You need to win this game. How do you focus on achieving a goal instead of coming at each other, blaming each other, that type of thing? So we
Mhm.
saw it more of a sports shape. And then we, went into the world of business and started to see how it could take place in the real world, but it was just missing, and turned out to be the missing link was AI. Unfortunately, Christian's a brilliant AI architect, and here we are. So we combined the 5-factor model of psychology with AI, and it's given some really nice output so far.
I love that. So I took a personality course in my graduate training, and
Okay.
all the research shows the Big Five is one of the more valid psychology models. So I'm thrilled to hear that you're using the Big Five. For those out there that don't know, you can think of the acronym OCEAN. So there's
Yep.
openness to experience, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. And they all fall on a spectrum. So you can be on high or low on one end or the other. And I like to think about it as like a soundboard. So we all have our preset levels, like however we're turned. So, like I, for example, am
Hmm.
really high on extroversion, but that doesn't mean that we can't modify, right? Even though some of those
Right.
dials might be harder to turn than others, we can always work on, having personality types that are going to
Hmm.
help us succeed in the world and the workplace. I love to hear that y'all are using the Big Five. Where does AI fit into all this?
So that's it. I'm really glad you can join the thoughts there, because you're right. The big five you have not seen, especially in corporate spaces, but just in general, you're not going to show up for work one day and take a big five assessment. And the reason is the outputs. So when you
Mm,
take this assessment, it's going to show you're a conscientiousness score of 0.8674. How can you tell an employee that? They don't know how to interpret it. They don't even know what that means. Conscientiousness can't even spell. So that's why it hasn't been there. And for the last 50, 60, 70 years, props to the other assessment providers, is what they've been trying to do is solve an implementation issue. So you walk away as a letter or a shape or a word, and again, trying to solve that aspect of how do I remember this for the other 364 days a year. And that's where AI comes into play, where we can actually go back to the more research version of this science and the more complex output, where it's truly infinite possibilities, and then have AI translate that for us. So now we have all these complex
Mm.
scores and unique situations, but you don't need to worry about that score, because all you're doing is bringing day-to-day operations to this tool, and it's going to give you the best possible advice about what it already knows about you. So it's very much just solving that gap and trying to make this implemented into daily values.
So let's say, for example, I have my super high extroversion score. Like,
Yep.
what would the AI output on that be?
So it's really interesting because what you do, and it's all context based. So it's not just you're extroverted and try to listen a little bit more this year. It's tell me your situation. So you could say, I'm going into a big meeting with this vice president I've never met before. I want to make an impact, but I don't want to dominate the conversation. How should I engage in this meeting? And it'll take your scores, all five of them, and all the different facets, and say, maybe speak up and engage, but do it so by asking questions and show that you can listen, show that you can learn. This person probably has a lot of advice they could give you. Speak, but don't dominate. Do it very much based on you. Whereas if it was someone more introverted, you do the opposite, take the chance to answer a question, show what you're made of, that type of thing. So everyone's going to get a different response to the question.
Very cool, very personalized.
Mm-hmm.
So is this tool used mostly for development, or is it used for selection as well?
It's a lot of development, and it's a lot of, honestly, it's a strong word, but problems. So as you're going through your day, work's not easy, life's not easy. You work through the fires that you're trying to put out. You also work towards goals. So if you want to get promoted, there's all sorts of parts of this tool where you can enter what you're trying to accomplish. So that's the development aspect of trying to get better, trying to develop skills to help with your traits. And then it does work in selection. So if you're building a team, it's a team of 4, and it's very specific on due dates and organization. You can ask the tool, out of this team, who should I select to build the most accurate or most efficient group? And it'll help you do so. We're staying away from hiring right now, but it does help with the team. We trust
Yeah.
that people are making the right hires, but let's make your hires a little bit better once they get here.
Yeah, I know with hiring, there's a lot of legal implications with using
Yes.
these type of tools. So it's probably wise to stay out of that
Yes.
arena for
There's a
now.
lot of lawsuits. We also just we don't necessarily agree with it as well. One of the
Mhm.
best hires I ever made, one of my previous companies, was again in the financial world. She was a civil engineer. I just don't think that you can tell who's going to be a good fit in their career based on one assessment one day.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So in my education as an IO psychologist, I learned that the number one predictive factor for someone doing well at their job is cognitive ability. Not surprising,
Hmm.
to be able to
Yep.
learn and remember and apply what your training is. But the second is conscientiousness,
Yep.
and I embarrassingly score low on conscientiousness. And I feel like I'm just like, what kind of IO psychologist am I, scoring low on the personality trait that's most predictive of job performance? And so for those who, like me, score low on conscientiousness, like, how does the tool help them, do their job better?
I'm really glad you asked that question, because you're right. The results of your test, it's not good, bad, sideways. It's just who you are. And that also doesn't mean that's who you have to be forever. But what you change is you have these personality traits that are pretty innate unless you deal with something major or trauma or getting married, having kids. The big events can tend to change your personality a little bit, but otherwise it stays fairly stable. So what the tool focuses on is then building skills. It's like I always use the Bill Gates example, and I'm actually reading his memoir, so I'm glad it checks out. But this guy is clearly brilliant, one of the smartest people that's ever lived, but he was literally afraid to talk to girls in high school. He couldn't speak up. He was afraid to communicate. So he had really low extroversion scores, what I'm getting at. Now
Mhm.
he's speaking to literally hundreds of thousands of people. He's been in the spotlight for 30 years. You can develop a skill to overcome these things. Same with you. If you have lower conscientiousness, you're also writing a book. So you clearly have developed skills in your life to
Yeah.
make things happen the way you want it to. You're pursuing that goal just in a different way, which is what we all appreciate.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I'm not doomed. So let's talk about this intersection of AI and mental health, and
Hmm.
how does the assess, because the big five really isn't have to do much with mental health. It's just
No.
personality. So I've just been so intrigued, whenever you said you wanted to talk about this topic today.
Yeah. So what's interesting is you're right. Your personality is just you are who you are, and honestly, we see that as being the first step. Accept who you are. There's nothing wrong with you. You're unique. You're your own snowflake. It's good. So having that awareness is fantastic. But what you're doing with our tool is you're building a companion. So as you go through these days, it's hard to have someone who can truly empathize with you as you're going through a work struggle or a work challenge. Even when you bring it home, your spouses, your family, they all care as much as they can, but they also don't work for the company. They don't have any pull to actually fix things. So a lot of times you feel like you're alone. And when that happens, that's where you can really see that mental health aspect start to shine in its ugly way. So what we do is we allow again this context element of here's exactly what I'm going through right now. Was this inappropriate, or did this feel wrong, or should I not have said that? Kind of these thoughts that you wish you could ask somebody, but again, like I mentioned, there's no one to really ask that's an expert. And sometimes you just don't want to. Sometimes it's scary to come out and ask these types of questions. So it allows you to address that first step on your own. Privacy is a really big element of this tool. So anything you type in there, nobody can see. We can't even see it on our end. Your scores are private. Everything's private. So again, you're building that companion to start tackling things on your own and asking the questions that are related to the human side of things. So there's not answers. You can't go to Google and say, my boss just said this. What should I do? You'll probably end up on a Reddit feed. But again, there's no science to that. So it
Yeah.
gives you the best possible advice for these challenges.
So when it comes to mental health, if someone is, for example, having a hard time,
Hmm.
experiencing maybe burnout or
Hmm.
depression, they then type that into the tool and get advice. Like, how does it help with mental health issues?
That's exactly it. And advice is the key word there. It's not going to tell you to do anything, but it's going to give you the best possible advice. So we see it a lot with, I'm in sales and I don't like it. It makes me unhappy. I'm nervous making phone calls. How do I go about taking the steps of trying to get into a new role without hurting my career itself? How do I make a change that's sounding incapable of what I'm currently doing? Little things like that, but it is advice. So the tools outputs will give you options based on who you are from what it sees, but it's not going to say do this right now, or I'm
Yeah.
doing this for you, or send this exact email. It's going to present you with options so you kind of work with it versus the aspect of AI that's a little bit more automated. We are still hand in hand with the human experience.
Got it. And would it ever recommend go see a therapist or talk to your
Yes.
doctor?
Very often, and what's an interesting aspect of it too, and especially the corporate space, is if someone says, I want to blackmail my boss, tell me his scores, I can really get ahead if I blackmail him today, it's going to say, sorry, we're not going to touch that topic. So it understands what you're saying and also knows when it shouldn't comment and when it's inappropriate to jump in there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And what are your thoughts on using AI to destigmatize mental health issues, particularly among masculine individuals?
Hmm.
Those more masculine are less likely to seek mental health guidance and
Right.
support. So, what do you see AI's role in that?
I think it's availability and just awareness of, maybe there's that macho, old school, the strong, silent type who can never seek that type of help. But maybe if it is on their phone and something that, if they're stirring late at night, have one of those nights where they wake up, if they have a resource available to them where they can ask the question and kind of settle their own mind, I think that can do a lot versus I think it takes a lot of courage to make that phone call to a therapist. And I think speaking to a human can be a little daunting as well, at least at the start. So I think it really is just making it available to as many people as possible.
Yeah. Do you have any case studies with how people have used the tool to help with mental health?
Yes, we have one that's working on getting published right now. It's actually a really interesting case study where it's a social working organization.
Hmm.
We have their leadership. We started with them, then we brought their staff, and then we actually brought on the members that they support. So the people that are truly on the other end of the social work. And we're seeing, first of all, what types of questions they ask. How are people interacting with this? Some are just saying, how do I get through this morning? Or how do I choose not to use drugs today? And some are saying, okay, I'm looking to get promoted. So it's interesting to see the use cases, but also to see how these humans are talking to each other when in tandem. They're being a little bit more thoughtful as to how they should approach conversations and how they should reflect on conversations. And we're really starting to quantify that and see how it all works.
What have some of the preliminary findings show?
So it's interesting. If I had to bucket into one general concept, is that these work relationships, these people that we meet at work and talk to at work, it's 40 hours a week. These relationships, as much as we say respect the work-life balance, that is absolutely important. But these relationships matter, is the thing. So they are something that people focus on, they take home, they think about, they prioritize. So we see that, people are saying, what's the best way to tell so and so this without hurting their feelings? That's a very common one. What's the
Hmm.
best way to give this type of feedback, even though I know that they're good at their job? This just was a swing and a miss for them. So we're seeing a lot of that out there.
It reminds me of a talk I gave recently on mental health in the workplace. And I addressed both what to do as a self advocate, so someone who's
Hmm.
experiencing mental health issues in the workplace, but also as an ally and what to do and what
Right.
to say for someone who is going through mental health struggles. And I applied the framework from my forthcoming book to that talk. So, it's not just what an ally can do, but also what you can do for yourself. And we need to have
Right.
both because, 1 in 5 adults at any given time are going through some sort of mental health issue. And so,
Wow.
that's 20% of the workforce. So that's 20% that could be self advocates, and that's
Right.
80% that can be allies. So it's cool that this tool helps people be better allies for others in the workplace.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I love your framework and just the concept that you pursue, because allyship really is, it's relational. It's people
Mhm.
helping people and supporting people. But correct me if I'm wrong, it's also very action driven. You
Yeah.
can't just be an ally. You have to, work towards it and continue to work on your skills and have those types of conversations. That's why I love your approach to the whole field.
Thank you. Yeah, and with your tool, does it also help like managers navigate these tough conversations? Because I that's a big
Hmm.
piece of feedback I hear is, it's the managers, or they're the frontline
Oh
defense,
yeah.
and a lot of times they don't know what to say or what to do when their subordinates come to them with mental health concerns.
Yeah, and it's absolutely true. And I've seen, honestly, a lot of it in my career so far. And it's hard because, yeah, you're right. Someone can say, what's the ratio for this, and this? You know that answer. It's concrete, it's black and white. But someone, especially in a one-on-one where it's typically just, checking in, seeing how your pipeline's doing, that type of thing, all of a sudden it's tears in a conversation you weren't prepared for. How do you either reflect on that or kind of develop beforehand to make sure that you can handle that type of a conversation? Because unfortunately, for that management role, it's really important to see and react correctly. Because if
Yeah.
you just go instinct, sometimes it's wrong, and that can be a really impactful conversation for the person receiving it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we have a lot of audience members who are in HR and
Yep.
diversity, equity, and inclusion. For those watching out there, aside from subscribing to your platform, what recommendations would you have for those who want to utilize AI for better mental health outcomes in the workplace?
I think the way I see AI, at least right now, obviously it's going to be changing quite a bit in the next 5, 10 years. But I think right now it's kind of a magic wand for the stuff that you don't need to spend your time on. It's like us, for example, what our AI does, it keeps you from flipping through a 45-page packet of paper, trying to find exactly what you want to say and then reflect back on the notes that you took a year ago. It's making that part easier and then still delivering the human side of things. So when you're in the HR space, you got to think that same thing. What is something you wish you'd get off your plate so you can go back to focusing on your people? So I think like payroll is a great example. Payroll is it's a nightmare. It's tough. It's tedious, it's detail oriented. When you can see AI starting to take over that space, that frees up so much more time for an HR person to then talk to their people, listen to their people, hear from their people. So I think that's a really nice element of AI right now. And
Mhm.
then obviously that's going to develop into taking over as much as it can and really just leaving the soft skills of these businesses. How do people connect and push the world forward?
Absolutely. Well, Nick, how do people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about what you do and the platform?
Yeah, absolutely. LinkedIn's obviously very easy. My email we can shoot out there as well. And then just sales@personos.ai is a really nice way to get in touch. We do demos, we do free trials, and honestly, we just like to have the conversations with people. What do they see? What can we do to help out with their organizations? It's a human space. So the more humans we can talk to and say, what are you actually trying to accomplish this year? What's unique about you? That's what we're trying to do.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for all you do to help us be better humans at work.
Thank you. It's great talking to you.